recording is on. All right, so recording is on now. All right, so let's go back. So I'll repeat homework assignment. This is I'm setting today is March 25th. It's due a week from today. Also, I was saying the exam, April 6th. So mark your calendar. Exam 2 for this class is April 6th. And third, if you should be working on your term projects at this time. If you don't have a group and a topic at this point, you're behind, right? So make sure that you contact me ASAP via email so that we can get that sorted out. All right, so this is I'm just going to call this PHP Grade, simple PHP Grade calculator. That's what I'm going to call it. So I'm going to create go here and I'm going to create a assignment. There we go. And so this is going to be simple homework, simple grade calculator. All right. So it's going to be due, today's 25th. So it's going to be due, what, April 1st by 10 p.m. So it is now open, and it'll stay open until the 3rd of April, April 3rd. All right, so just basically complete the attached PHP grade calculator document. Okay, so that should be clear enough, I think. So complete the attached PHP grade calculator document. All right, so I'm gonna create, so the link is now set up. So if you've already done this assignment, you can just go ahead and submit it. All right, so that point is taken care of. Again, the exam, April 6th, and then the other issue is your homework, your project. Make sure you're working on that. All right, so that being said, okay, then now what we can do is just continue to focus on the codes. I believe actually, if you look at this project sample, a lot of the code that I'm writing is there, right? And then these are just some CSS and SQL that you can out later on. We'll use these once the website starts to become a little nicer. So you can just, start downloading this, playing with it a little bit if you like. And then the other module here is the SQL. So you can see there's a SQL file already. For those of you that like to just, be ahead, you can just go into phpMyAdmin, run this query. That'll create a database for you. And then, you just use the credentials that you have. And then there's a document there. We're going to do a MySQL and PHP. Okay, so that is basically, so 2 homework assignments. But today, what I want to do is just continue building this website. Okay, we're going to continue laying out some of the. We're going to continue laying out some of the some of the ideas here. Okay. For this website. Remember, we're building it in MVC, and that's why there's a question. So somebody's asking about, there was never a lab 6, they say. There's no lab 6. It would have been, yeah, I mean, just keep it simple, to be honest. I don't really have a labs. So this is lab 4. Okay, so you mean lab 5. Well, what I will say is just keep it simple, all right? I will not be looking for jQuery. I will not be looking for object-oriented programming, Okay, so really, in essence, you can revert back to even an older lab. Okay, I really just want you to have all of it in PHP, a form, and then calculate the grade. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So keep it simple, okay? No complications there. So again, I just said I will not be looking for OOP, and I will not be looking for jQuery. I really just want to evaluate a very simple from scratch PHP. And then after that, the project, obviously the project, everything needs to be in there. So that's a different story. All right, so I think that answers that question, I believe. Okay, so now let's go back and, as I said, I just want to continue laying out this website. So we need to go to the virtual machine, right? Which is where we were. So you should be seeing the virtual machine now, LAMP Ubuntu. So I'm just going to start it up. Okay. There's another question. Somebody's asking me if there's anything due tonight. Do we have any homework due tonight, guys? No, right?
No.
I don't believe so.
There is none.
There's no homework due tonight. The last one was jQuery UI, and that's already submitted. All right. So let's log in here. Okay. Let's go in here. And if you remember, we were working on that website, right? So we're just, for the rest of the semester, I might do one separate example where I do something just separately with databases. But for now, we're just going to continue building this site today. Okay. So now that this has opened up, so let's open up the terminal, okay? And let's navigate to our folder. Right? And if you remember, there is ITS 362. Okay, and then then let's go into test 2, I believe. And this is where we had most of our files, right? So we were looking at some of these. We had created index PHP, I think. And yeah, here it is, index PHP. So and also we included some other files. So we'll have to work on the permissions of this, but let's say, we will need to create a directory and call it So we'll need to create a directory and call it, let's say, MVC, actually. That's a good one. MVC example or MVC MVC example, maybe. Okay. And then here, if we want to, all right. So now, if we want to, we have this folder now, so we can try ls-l. So we got all our files in there. cd MVC example. I'm going to do a clear ls. Oh, I'm in there. So cd ls. And then let's try, just to try something here. Let's do cp rc sudo
you haven't specified a destination.
Oh yeah. I think I wanted to move this, not. All right, so let's do. What is it? MVC. Okay. So now MVC ls. Okay, we got our file there. ls-l. I just haven't checked the permissions of this in the website, but let's. This would be RC test 1. So then I'm going to go to the browser. Okay. And this is localhost. And then it is test 2 MVC. Okay, RC test 1. So that, that's basically a little bit more helpful because I have too many files in there, I think. And I'm having a hard time figuring out what is what. So I'm going to go. So I have one file in here, but I actually don't want this file in. Well, let's leave it. Let's leave it. Now I'm going to go back out, and arrays is not a file that I need here. Config is. So cp config, and then sudo, and then, sorry about that noise. I don't know why it's doing that. MVC, okay. And also, get or post, was it index? I think it was index actually. And then we're going to move it also, MVC example, okay. And MySQL Inc., we also want that one. MySQL Inc. So we're going to move that to MVC also. And objects was not it, I think. Product. All right, so I think that's all of them. So now we can go into MVC. Okay. All right, so we've got our 3 files. And really then, this is, these are the files that we want to use. So if you remember, I'll just kind of quickly describe these again. So if we do index, if you remember, all we're saying is we've got we've got some information in require. We're going to do, if we have some configuration files that are going to be relevant. So we want, we have some variables that are important, like we want to define what MySQL is. We just want to do it in one file, right? And so we have a configuration file. That kind of makes sense. Then we have another one where we actually make the database connection. So we've started to talk about that, I think. And then we have one that includes the header.html. So these two today, we're going to work on this one a little bit more, and in particular the header.html, just so that we can start to see this website come to life. Then we have the logic, usually related to getting data from the database. That's what, application, you wanted to view something. And then finally the footer, right? So the footer, that's going to be common to multiple pages. We're only starting with an index page now, but remember the index page, your website will have some kind of a menu, right? So the index page is going to be the page linked to the home button. But then we're going to have, depending on what your website is, a registration page, you have display products, and those kinds of things. Okay, so that's our basic idea here. So what we want to do right now is I want to try index PHP and get it to work. Now, currently, there is no header HTML, right? So let's just go first into config inc. Now, another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment out right now these two. Okay, I'm going to comment out the require for MySQL, and I'm going to require the footer. That way, because I want it to start working, right? So if I need to get configuring correctly done, and then I need to get that header HTML file done. I also probably want to start putting these in specific places. So I'm going to create an HTML folder, right? And then I'm going to put my view files, my HTML files in that folder, basically. That's kind of my goal. So hopefully this makes sense, right? So it's all, MVC is all about organization, really, and nothing else, okay? So then we're going to do, I think we called it HTML. So then we have the folder now. We're starting to develop our folder structure. In theory, you would also want, includes. The includes is where you would put config inc PHP, for instance, right? So that, you want to organize your data sort of like that. So it's really well organized because your website could get pretty complicated. So let's take a look at config inc for now. Just want to make sure we did that, that we finished it the last time around. So if I go over here and I take a look at it, for now it looks like a proper PHP page. I have a define for MySQL, and then I'm telling it to find that file, which already does exist. This is an important file. Remember, it has the logging information, username and password, and that's pretty critical information to have. Okay, and then this is just the URL. This has to do with the fact that sometimes, once you start dealing with things like encrypted, non-encrypted data, you want to have the correct protocols and all that stuff in there. Also, think about this, another idea. Let's say that you build a website, right? And then let's say that you work for a company that builds websites, and you build a website, and then you get another client. As it turns out, they almost have a very similar need. So you could actually reuse the other website for them, right? But if you've hard-coded all the URLs inside the website, then you have to go into all those files and make those changes. So that's why this is nice, because when you do something like this, you could put in, you could just, it's like like a symbolic link in Linux, right? You just always refer to base URL. Whatever base URL is, it doesn't matter. Throughout all of your files, you are only using base URL. But these things can be changed in just one file efficiently, okay? So remember, that's really what MVC is all about. It's about, in this, well, one of the reasons is to make your code development a lot more fast, easier to debug, because you have tiny little files. Like if I just look at this file, right, it's got 2 lines, you can't go wrong. I know it's, it works, right? So there's no issues. All right, so I think I made the changes. So now I save the file. I have it in there, okay? I'm going to move this one. So if I do sudo mv config to include, okay. All right, so ls-l. So I've moved my config into includes. All right, so all I have to do now is I'm going to go back to sudo nano index, okay, there, and I'm going to add in here includes like that. Okay, so once I do this, the next step is I want to do this, right? The include. So I just need to define a header.html file. You already know how to do this because it's just a simple HTML file. Now, can it have CSS in there? Sure. Can it have jQuery, JavaScript, all of those in there? Yes. Okay, so all of that can be in there. Any kind of client-side code, your pure JavaScript can be in there as well. Right? right? So we're going to build that file now. All right, so header, usually that's going to be the same name, so just Control X, Y, Enter. Now I'm going to go into my HTML file, or sorry, folder. I'm going to take a look at it, and I'm going to create in here the file in question. So I'm going to now create sudo nano header dot. Did we call it HTML or HTML?
HTML.
All right, so there we go. You see here, this is what we're going to, obviously this is the very beginning of the entire So remember that you only need to have one HTML file, right? So for instance here, this starts the HTML file, but it doesn't finish it. Therefore, you only do this, but you don't do this, okay? You don't do this part. Why? Because this part will be where? In the footer, okay? In the footer. So you kind of just show the part. Remember that it's like you got a little piece of the HTML, then maybe some PHP somewhere along the way, but then the index page will bring in the rest, okay? More PHP, more HTML, and then the footer brings in and wraps up whatever needs to be in the footer, okay? So, and then, that's the approach that we are going to take in here. Okay, so we've talked about. Right, we'll see a little thing also about closing PHP tags, when those are necessary and when those are not. But for now, let's not worry about that. Session tracking, that's also something else that we need to talk about. A little bit related to cookies, but we will do that after the databases discussion is complete. Okay, so now our goal is to create that HTML page. So we've got the index. So we're actually going to create both the the header, and we're going to create the footer, okay? So that, we should start there because that will give us complete, complete websites basically. So we have head section there, okay? And then now what would you have? Obviously, the style sheets needs to be in here, right? I've already provided a style sheet. You can use the one in the last module. I just download it. Use that one. And then usually you're going to look for this CSS somewhere. I'll leave this blank, but for now, just be aware you would put in your CSS there. All right, and then once we've completed this, we can do the head section, of course. Again, we open it but not close it because we're going to close it elsewhere. And then it depends here how you do things, but this is, since we're going to have a menu, right? We're going to have a menu in our website, then we would put in a body tag here. That's just the approach we're going to take, a simple menu. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We're going to define some kind of a menu, but for now, let's just say we just have a heading, right? So we just want to see that it works. So I'm going to do MVC website PHP. Okay, now I'm going to close this one, right? Just like that. So I've closed the website. And now, what else do I need? Well, nothing really, nothing else, right? Because this is where we would add the menu, but let's not do that just yet. So then we can just save this one as is. Okay, and now we have a header, right? Now we have a header, but we don't have a complete website just yet, right? So we need also a footer. Okay, so then I'm gonna do same thing. I'm gonna, but I'm gonna call it footer .htm. So I got my little file there. And so now the question is, what needs to go into the footer? Well, of course, close up everything. You know, footer is where you could put your login information as well if you wanted to. But really, for now, we just need this, right? And then what else? The closing HTML. That's it. So obviously, anything that goes in the website in the footer would go here. So people put in here like contact us, you know, those kinds of things. Now, if I do recommend, now that I think about it, get the CSS for the next class, okay? Have it already downloaded, because that way I can just start adding a lot of divs with already specified names. And so because we'll have a CSS, the formatting will start to come out in a nice way. All right, but for now, let's just do this test. Okay, so I've created both files. They're there, header and footer. So now I'm going to go back out into the main folder, right, where I have my HTML, my includes. I also, before I forget, I'm going to create the CSS, right? And actually, you know, if you had images, you would create an images one, and also JS, right? So JS or something like that. For JavaScript, so as you can see, you know, as I've said many times, MVC is a lot about just organization. All right, so we've got our folders there. Now we want to take a look at the index page once again. So let's take a look at that. All right, so we got the config file. Hopefully that'll work. We've got the HTML, and now we have to enable the footer as well, right? Footer HTML, and then that should, oh, the footer is in the HTML folder. Okay, so now let's go ahead. We should be ready to try this out. So I'm going to go back to the browser, and in here I would have to say index.php. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Any questions about these concepts or anything like that?
Not yet, at least.
None for me.
Okay, so let me stop the screen here. So let me just what I will say is do the following. All of you go into, so you should be seeing Brightspace now, right? Go into here. And if I'm not mistaken, this style sheets is the style sheets for this project. I'm almost certain of it, but let me take a look at it. So it should have nav, yeah, nav. There should be a header. Yep, header. Yep, there's a header. Should be a wrap in here somewhere. I believe this is the style sheet for the project. Okay, you know, like I said, this class is not about style sheets, and so therefore I've just provided the style sheet for you. But the nice thing about this is now we can start adding, you know, individual objects in there, and we can use the style sheet for our website to start to take better shape. Okay, so what I will suggest is that you go into Brightspace, go into the folder, the last one pretty much, PHP in my accounts, but you have to do this in your VM, of course, and then download this style sheets, okay? And then we're gonna be able to use it basically. Let me, I'm gonna, so that there's no dead air as I do this, I'm just gonna stop the video for a second while I download it from Brightspace, okay? And you guys do the same. Let me start the recording again. So we are recording once again. Hopefully now you've downloaded the CSS, so let's go ahead back to the VM. Okay, and so I have that file. So I'm going to move this, go to the terminal. And I'm going to cd into home, or yeah, that doesn't count. And then downloads. Okay. And there it is, styles, right? So let's now. Okay, now I need to CP, copy this one, right? Style. And where do I need to copy it? I need to copy it into var ww. I think it's ITS 362 test 2, I think. MVC example. And then I think we created CSS. All right. So that looks promising. So now we can go into var ww ls cd its cd test clear. You guys are seeing this, correct?
Yeah.
Great. So, and I am recording. I've done videos where I made a whole explanation, and then I was writing on the board, and then I was writing, but none of that was recording. So I'm always so paranoid now about that. All right, so let's go to MVC example. Okay, and CSS should be in the CSS folder. Yeah, there it is. And if we look at the permissions, right? Now, basically, I'm not, in all of my examples, I will probably not even touch the CSS file. I'll just make a reference to it in general, right? So now that we have the CSS, we can start creating, objects, divs, etc. We're going to refer to them by name, and then the formatting will be done for us, okay? So for instance, let's start with just the footer, right? So let's just do a footer. So, but now, or go back to the footer, but now we are going to refer to the CSS. So I'm going to do, the footers are in HTML. So I'm going to do CD. Okay. And then I'm going to grab the footer again. Okay. And now I'm going, usually footers have a little thing at the end, right? So they have a little thing. So I'm going to create, I'm going to call it div class equal footer. Oops, footer. All right. Div here. All right, and then now I'm going to do, okay, and then now I can have whatever I want in here. So let's say, I'm going to put in just a link, right? So just a link, some kind of anchor tag, and you're going to say href, and then reference back to something of interest to you. So, maybe index.php, right? So you refer back to the page for whatever reason. And then you can say here, go back, or contact, usually something like this, right? Whatever goes, people put in like copyright 2021, so you can say contact. Okay, so just something like that. And then, but now this is a little bit better formatted. All right, so we have that. We close the, and now we have our div in here for a footer. Okay, so we have that. So let's see what happens when we try this. We can save this one, Control-Y. All right, and now if we go to the website, oops, go to the website and refresh the page, you can see now we've got our footer in there as part of our website, right? And it just takes us back to it. So we can start adding things, and then you can modify the CSS to reflect the things that you want. Okay, so now just like we did that example, let's do another example, but with the header, right? So let's go back to the header. Okay, so we're going to do sudo nano header here. Okay, and the same thing. Now that we have the CSS, okay. So I forgot to do this part, right? That's an important thing. So I need to do CSS folder, and I think it was called styles.css, right?
Styles, plural.
So styles.css, and then now, we can reference it, right? So now it'll bring in our footer as we were discussing, and so now it takes a little bit better shape and starts to look a little bit more professional. We're not going to get fancy here. As you know, this class is not about that artistic side of web development, the UX or whatever. That's a whole other side of it. This is just more very practical. All right. So, but now we have a little bit more of our footer in there, a little bar, and so on. So now we can start to pursue the same approach for the header, right? So let's go to the header. And so I'm going to do sudo nano header. Now we have our style sheet, right? And what do we want to do? What are some of the aspects that we want to consider here? So maybe in the header, we want to have, just like there is a footer class in the CSS, we should probably have and we do have in the CSS, a header one. All right, and so I'm going to create here div, right? And I'm going to call it, class equal header, right? So I reference that from the CSS now. Okay, and then I'm going to close the div over here. And now, what information do I want in here? Well, actually, this what I was doing here, right? So what I was doing in here. Now I'm going to just put that in this section. All right, what's great about this, remember, is now this header and footer with the style sheet will apply to every page in your website. And that's really what's really nice, okay? So now let's say we're going to change this to a header one. Okay, and then just not forget to close it. And then in here, then we can, let's add some kind of a link, for instance. So I'm going to do href. Again, I don't have many things to reference right now, so I'm just going to do index.php. I'm referencing back to the same page. Remember that without a path, it just references whatever is in the current working directory. And then we can say here, we have like that, close the anchor tag, and then just say here, MVC, simple MVC, website or something. Okay, so okay, so we have that's completed now. So let's take a look at what it looks like. So let's do Control X Y. All right, and we go back to the browser over here, and now let's refresh. See, it looks a little bit better, I think. I don't know. All right, so now what's the next thing that we might want to consider? Probably the thing that will give it the structure is some kind of a navigation. We want to have a menu, which is a menu, right? And there's a lot of ways of doing these menus, remember. So you can try your own things, by the way. I'm not saying that it has to be exactly like this. Now the menu will have some PHP in it, right? So we're going to have some PHP in it, But for now, let's, so this will be kind of an example of how you can actually put some PHP even in the header itself. Let's use another div that we have, another class in the CSS that we have, which is called nav. You probably saw that when I was going over it. There's quite a few. So here, let's give this an ID of nav, and we're going to reference it. So nav, and then let's not forget to close it. So this only goes in the header, therefore we can open it and close it here, if you were a little bit confused about that. All right, so now what do we need in this nav? For now, let's just put in some text in here. Let's just say this will be the menu, and just see if you know what it looks like, basically. So let's save it. Control-Y, enter. All right. Once again, we go to the browser, refresh, and you can see there it's barely noticeable, but you can see it there, right? It says menu. Now, so if you look at this website, now what you see here is you see this is also too big. I think we probably need to work on that. But you can see here, this bar will be the menu. This bar will be the footer, and this little tiny light blue will be the body. So here, that will become very big or very small, depending on what kind of a website we are trying to build, okay? So that's really the objective here. Are there any questions so far?
Not at this time, no.
Pretty straightforward, really. Okay, so we have this. We can probably take out that word since we don't need it. So now the question is, how do we create a PHP driven menu, right? So how do we create that? So let's think about it. Well, obviously here we need some PHP, right? So then you can just add it. You see that? Just like that. And then close it, and then we're going to create some kind of a logic that allows us to create the menu, right? That's what we want to do, to have this menu in here. It's not going to be database driven, it's just something hard coded. So what do we need? We're going to have at least 4 links right now, right? So we're going to have home, let's say home, about, contact, and register, okay? So then let's do an array. So I'm going to say pages, yeah, pages is a good name, which could be array, right? Array, open parentheses, and then close parentheses, semicolon. So then in here, we can, just so that this is easier to read, we can have key value pairs. So I'm going to say home, right? And then just like we did in one of the labs, like that, right? And we're going to say, obviously, the home is the easiest one because it's just going to be index.php. All right, then we're going to add a comma. This is where no, I won't do these pages. These pages are going to be done by you guys as you create your own website. So about, same thing here. And then this one, I'm just going to put in the pound sign and kind of just leave it sort of blank. All right, then I'm going to, so that's home and about, contact also. Same thing, right? And then one last one. You can always add more to these, by the way. That's entirely up to you. But this one is register, right? So that's the page where, you know, remember that this is going to be username and password kind of thing. And so before somebody can log in, they need to be able to register, of course. You know, this is crucial for most websites, right? So you have that. Now, there's problems with these register pages. When you create this in the web, you'd be surprised how many bots there are and how many accounts they can create that are fakes. So certainly, if you had this deployed on the web, you need those CAPTCHAs. It might also be recommended sometimes when you don't have that many users to kind of approve them or not. But that's more of an administrator side of a thing. All right, so we create the register page. This one, well, we can actually put in a name here. Register, it's just going to be a broken link, right? A broken link because we don't have a register page just yet. But it reminds us at least that we need to create this page. All right, and that's it, right? So at this point, let me get rid of this space. I've created kind of this logic where I have these, right? And now I need to think about where I'm going to hold them. So usually when we do menus, one way of doing them with CSS is just to create an unordered list and then LIs inside, right? And then that way we can reference these LIs with the CSS to make the menu kind of look nice. And so in that view, what I could do here is I could probably just do a UL, right? Because I only need one. Sorry, and actually let's do it outside. So let's do it here. So that's a UL, right? And then all the PHP will just generate the LIs. So I'm pretty sure you guys can already visualize how you would do something of that nature, if you think about it. All right, so I've got my UL in there. Now what I want to do is probably I need to iterate through these, right? And let's think about it. What do I need to do? I need to create one LI for every one of those 4 things in the array, correct? So if I need to do something like that, I need some kind of a loop. So I'm going to do for each, and then I'm going to say from pages, right? From pages as, and then let's just say key and value, because they're key value pairs. So key and V probably. And then parentheses, then you can open curly bracket and then close curly bracket. All right, so in essence, now we need to create the tag. So what do we do here? We're going to do an echo. And let's just think, what do we need? We need, let's just put the LIs first. Let's just keep it simple. So I'm going to say echo LI, right? List item. All right, I've got my opening LI. There's a couple of ways you could do this. I'm just going to do it like this. It's easier for me to visualize, so I'm going to do LI here. That, I know that's working. And now in here, I'm going to construct what goes inside the LI. So usually list items would have, what would they have? Well, let's just do the words. So let's do echo. We're going to echo $, just the word right now, K, right? Just like that. You think that'll work? I believe so. So then if we just do this, I'm going to do Control X, Why? I believe I did everything. So let's go back to the browser now, refresh, and they're there. So it sort of worked, right? Register, contact, about, home, they're there. What else do we need to do? Now the appearance of these will depend, of course, on the CSS. So at this point, so let's say, list item. Now the other thing that we need is we'll have to check the CSS to see if why it's not formatting this a little bit better. Maybe I missed something. Now, let's do one more thing. I noticed that the nav, in the CSS, the nav is within another div called wrap. So let's actually, now if we open wrap, we will need to close it for sure. So you'll need to read the CSS and kind of make sense of it, but I do believe we should try that. So let's go to the code and go back here. So this nav, right, this nav and actually header, all of them are within another div that has something in the CSS. So let's do div ID equal wrap. All right, so I've done that. Before I forget, then let's just close this one. It opens in the body, right? So this is one thing that is sometimes a little bit tricky. So control. Now I need to go to the footer and just make sure I close that one. Okay, so it would probably be, it was inside the body tag that I wrote it. So it has to be within here. So then I'm going to do something like this, like that. So I think that should take care of that issue. Okay, so let's save it. Now I'm going to go back to the header. Okay, so I've got that one. I'm still working on nav. Now the other thing I want to do is I have the v-value, right? I have the v-values. So the v-value is what? It is the link. So if you click on home, you should be taken to the link. So that basically means, what does that mean? It means that we need, what do we need in here? An anchor tag, correct? So we need an anchor tag in there. So like that, maybe space in here. And then we need, we can also do plus, right? So we could also do like a plus to concatenate, but let's just try it like this. So echo, the next thing we would need is href. Oh, so actually href can go here. Href. Are you guys, does this make sense, guys? Yeah. Do you have any questions so far?
Not yet.
Yeah, all right. So now, since we're using single quotes, right, let's use double quotes for the href. So then in here now, what goes in here should be pretty much V. So $V. Okay, that's the link. Then I'm going to do the other part. So I'm going to do echo, and then I'm going to do single quote here. So now I need to close it, right? So double quote. So I close it, double quote, do that. And that's the link. Now it's in an anchor tag. Then the word should go inside here, right? So that's basically this one, K. All right, so then once I added that, echo, this, so we need to close it. Yeah, I think so, like that. All right, so hopefully that's clear. So that closes up the anchor tag, and then the li actually can also be here. So I'm just gonna add it for convenience right there, and I'm gonna get rid of this one. All right, so this is, I'm piecing together the LIs for this, which should have the links, okay? So if I did everything correctly, hopefully, all right, we'll try it. So it's saved. We can go back to the browser. Aha. You see the wrap actually was very helpful. Now it created this little effect over here, right? You see that? And we've got our, oh, and you see they have a little funny movement there. So probably fix this. So it looks a little, but anyway, that's in the CSS, the behavior. You can see now if I click on home, I assume it worked. Yeah, there we go. So it goes, register won't work, this broken link. You'll have to work on the CSS a little bit more, make it better, of course, for your project, change the colors, etc. All right, does this make sense, guys? Are there any questions?
Would you be able to go back to the, did we change anything in the config file in the includes folder?
Did you change anything? That's a good question. So let's go back to the includes folder, and we can take a look at config. So all that config has so far is the variable from MySQL, the mapping, so that we only use the variable instead of the file name. But I think this is commented out in the index.php at this time. So basically it's not doing anything, but it's also not causing any errors. And then we have this base URL, which, what I explained, just mapped to localhost. That's it. That's all that's in here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we are really just working on the header file. So as you can see, if I go over here, we have our site. Now again, remember what I've been saying about the project is your term project can start from this, okay? And in fact, that's what I want you to do. So we're building already all these things for your website, but you're all doing, some of you are doing hardware store, some of you are doing scheduling things. So obviously these pages are going to be different, as you start to improve things, okay? All right, so we've done the menu. So that's a lot of progress. Actually, we got a menu there. Obviously your menu can change. There's a lot of little things that we can do, but we have a nice menu now. Just work on that. Pretty sure this is a CSS effect. I don't know what's going on there. All right. So now we've got the header, we've got the nav, we've got the wrap, we've got a menu. We got a menu with links. So the links are there, as you saw, because this is a broken link. Okay, we got to work on that one. This just takes us back to index. This just redirects back to the home page. So what's the next thing we should do? We can probably, so one thing we could do is let's do this register page, right? I'm not gonna complete it right now, but let's just think about how that would work. So currently it's a broken link. But if you think about it, it should be a very similar to index PHP. Right? Only we're going to give it a different name. So technically speaking, let's go ahead. Where are we? Let's see here. All right, we need to exit out of this, go back to the main folder. Now we have, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of this one. Okay. So index PHP now, we're going to copy it, see how practical this is. And it was called register. There we go. We already got it. We have our register. We have our register page right now, and now we can go in and try to modify it. So I'm going to do nano register. Yeah, there we go. And so what do we need here? Think about it. This is now the register page. We would need the config inc because we might need the database, right? So we're bringing the database. Do we need an HTML header? Sure, we need an HTML header, right? But now in here, and then we have also a footer, right? And that also is the same. So the only thing we want to do here for now, just kind of as a temporary thing, we can say echo, and we can just say this is the register page, right? Just so that we know we're in a different page from the index page. So now we can proceed. Okay, we've saved it. Go back to the browser over here, refresh the page. Now if so this is index, right? So I'm in index. Now if I go to register, look at that. You guys see that? You got to work on whatever that CSS thing is. All right. Any questions? See how simple that was? You really easily now were able to create another page just by copying it because you created this general template, right? And of course, this is going to change. Usually, that's always going to be database driven, etc. Okay. All right. So that is the header. I'll take a look at the CSS, see what the issue is later. All right, what else? Got the index. We can't do the database stuff yet because I want to do that first, some separate examples, and then bring that into this. So we'll hold off on that. We will also need to create a SQL. We will also need to run or create the database, right? So we'll need to create some kind of a database that we can use. So that is entirely up to you how you do that. But I will provide something later for that. So then, what else are we missing in the footer? In the footer, we are missing. So how about that? We have in our in our CSS, we have a sidebar. So let's go ahead and try to add that as well. The sidebar, it's just, again, it's just a website. I'm just trying, we're just doing several things. So we're going to go to the HTML. You can always change this if you don't like it, but they're just examples. So let's go to the footer now. Footer, there we go. So in the footer, we want to think about what else we can add here. Okay, so one thing we could think about is adding a sidebar. Okay, so to add a sidebar, we could do, let's just add that div for now. So I'm going to say div class sidebar equal sidebar. Okay. And then, of course, div right there. So now that we have that, this is where we could have something about the login. So for now, let's just add a little echo, just something in here, some text, not an echo, just some text. And let's just say sidebar. Let's see what that looks like as we start to think about the structure of our website. Go over here. All right, so nothing there yet, but we're going to add that in. That might be within some other div. So we really have to look at the structure of everything. So we've got, let's create now. Yeah. So this sidebar, let's create in the header. Let's put in some new div elements for what will be called the body or the page itself, right? So this space. So now we're going to create structure for this space, which we'll call basically the page and the content. Okay, so let's go to the terminal. Let's go to the header. .htm. All right, and in here then, probably after nav, I think. So where was that? Nav is this. So it closes there, right? So I think it closes there. Therefore, I'm going to add in here div class page. And we're going to have another one because these are all already in that CSS I gave you, content. So remember, we opened them here, there, and because of that, we need to close them in the footer one. So we do content. We have to think a little bit of where they go. So we've got these here. They're open in the header. So they need to be closed. They would need to be closed. So this is one tricky thing. So wrap. So there's one open wrap, right? And then this header is open and closed. Then this nav is open and closed. Okay, so then really there should be 3 divs that close in footer. Okay, so then I'm going to go to footer and see this one opens and closes. This one opens and closes, and then there's only one in here. So I'm going to add 2 more. Okay, so hopefully that's correct. If you see anything, just let me know. Any issues? Okay, so let's just see what happens with this one. As long as everything is open and closed, I think we're good. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so maybe not. All right, so then let's take out one of these and put it here. Okay, that's a little bit better, I think, right? Looks a little bit better. Okay, so I think that's right. All right, so then we have the header. We have, so everything is contained within a wrap. right? And then within that wrap, we have the header, we have the nav, then we have the page. So that's how we should, so let's think about that structure again. So let's look at the header. Let's get this right. So we have the wrap, that kind of wraps everything. We have a header, but that's its own. We have a nav, that's its own. All of this. Then we have the page itself. That's kind of everything until the footer. And then we have content. And content and sidebar should be separate things. So then that's why we have basically two open div tags. And then at the very end, we'll have two closing div tags. And then in between, we'll have content should open and close, followed by sidebar should open and close, I think. So we've got, so if we look at footer then, that's why I closed this here. And then sidebar opens and closes there. And then footer opens and closes there. And then we have our divs that open and close here. Okay, so that I think is correct. Okay, so we closed those two divs, then we closed the footer. Then we have the sidebar that opens, and then we have the content that that opens and closes. Okay, so that, yeah. All right, yeah, that's basically it. So then in the body itself is where we that in the body itself, remember that the footer and the header should be the same for all. So now I'm gonna do, so I think this is right. But you guys can always check the CSS and get a better feel for it. So if I do this, now if I go to the register, right? Click on the register. Oh, this is the register page. So then if I go to home, oh, there we go. All right, so it is working. Good, good, right? So this is the index page, right? There's nothing there. I go to the, there it is. There's the register. Go to the, and so on. Make sense? Now here, the sidebar is where we can put the login and password. You don't have to do it that way, okay? I leave it to your own creativity to figure this out, for your term project. All right, so are there any questions at this time about any of this? No questions? No?
I don't have any.
None at this time.
Okay, so now let's, in the time that we have left, what do we want to build? Let's start building. Now, keep in mind, this sidebar also will, all right, so somebody's asking me that they want to see the for loop in the header. Okay, so let's take a look at that.
I already got it. Don't worry about it.
Already got it? Okay. All right, great. So then two things. So now, we've got some basic structure going here. The next thing that we probably want to look at is in the sidebar, we want to start laying out the login. Now, keep in mind, the login will not be displayed all the time, right? So when is it not displayed? When you're logged in. However, when you're not logged in, it should display. So that obviously is some kind of an if statement, if you think about it, right? It's some kind of an if statement. So what we need to do now is we need to go to our terminal. And we need to go to the footer because that's where the sidebar is. Remember, all pages in our website will need to have this, right? So then we can do the footer. Take a look at that. And now here where I wrote sidebar, obviously we need to get rid of that. And now we need to start laying out some logic for this to work. So this is, this will need to be, I think, so that let's do some PHP here. Okay, so in this sidebar, we can change it a little bit later, but let's do PHP in here. All right, just like that. And so now we need to say, is somebody logged in or not? So usually when somebody is logged in, we need to keep track of some kind of a variable, right? So, you know, we're gonna, that can be done in multiple ways, okay? You can have, in the database itself, do a query, you can have some kind of a variable that you're keeping track of things. We can set something in the, there is now also something very important that I'm about to introduce, which is something called, just like we have the get and the post arrays, we have what is called the session array. Okay, so the session array is something where we can keep information stored sort of globally, if you want to think of it that way. And therefore, we can have a user ID. Now, this user ID, when somebody logs in, so think about it this way. When somebody logs in, right, they're going to put in their username and password. That is going to be a SQL query. You check in the database. If the database finds that user and password, the session gets set to a value. If not, it does not get set. So therefore, you have a control here of saying, well, if is set, what is that? What does that mean? It means that they authenticated correctly and they are logged in. If this is not set, they failed in their login or whatever, so this is not set, and then therefore you need to tell them to log in. Okay, so that's basically the idea. So we need to have some kind of a redirection probably, but let's just start building this out. So the first idea is that we can make use of this session array. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create, because I'm in the PHP part of this now, I'm going to show the user info or the login form, either way. So I'm going to say if is set, right? So if is set, this one over here, session ID, right? So if that is set, what do I do? Open curly bracket, close curly bracket. Okay. And so now I need to decide, well, if it is set, what that means is that the user is logged in. Okay, so what do you show there? We can show, you know, something, let's just show a logout. Okay, let's just show that the user is, no, that the user is logged in. So then basically let's just show a link that says log out. You guys have probably seen that in your own websites. Whenever you're logged in, you know, it puts your name on there as well. So you guys, I'm sure, you know, already can figure out that all you have to do is put your name on the session and then retrieve it from there, and then you can display it. But you can also put in a link that says log out. So that's really all I'm going to do. So here then I'm going to do an echo for a UL or something. So it doesn't have to be that, but you know. And then what else do I need? I need actually all this can be a single thing, right? This can be, because I don't need any information. You could put in the name from the session, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm really just going to do this. So li, and then in the li, I'm going to put a anchor href I'm going to reference a page that we currently don't have yet, logout. So what does that mean? You need to create it. All right, so logout.php, there it is. And then what else? Then we say, close it, log out, of course. Oh, yeah, no, that's correct. Log out, close the anchor tag, right? And then close the li tag, list item, and then close the ul tag. And that's it. That should be, now that assumes that we are logged in. So this won't work right now because we don't have anything in the session because we haven't done that logic yet. So then we need to have an else statement, right? So we will need to have an else statement here. Let's see. Yeah, so that's fine. We need to have an else statement right there. Else, and this else statement says if you're not logged in, which is really what should happen right now if you wrote this code correctly, is what do we do? What do we display on there? Well, for now we don't have anything, so let's just display some different words. So let's display, well, I'm just going to say login form for now, right? Because we need to build it. We're going to need to build this. So login form. All right, so if I did everything correctly, it'll display login form. So let's run it. If you guys see any mistake, let me know. So let's try it. So I'm going to do refresh. Ah, there it is. So I think it worked, right? So the if statement would not have printed login form if it didn't see, you know, it checked the session that you're not logged in. So then basically it gives you the login form. You guys see that? Right now, very easily, you have now created a very important logic, right? That's the very important logic. Like if you're on, let's say on your YouTube environment and you're not logged in, right? It shows content with commercials. But then when you log in, it only, if you're paying the subscription, then it shows content, but without commercials. So this is the logic to do just that. Okay, at least the simplest logic you can imagine for it. All right, so that's a lot of progress, I think. Any questions, guys? No questions? All right, so let's stop here. This is a good stopping point. I'll stay a few minutes for any of you that have questions about homework, etc. Remember, we have homework due a week from today, and then the exam will be the week after that, right? Okay. So this is a good stopping point. So I'm going to go ahead now. Please, you know, make sure that that you're following along, because remember, we're going to be building this for like 2-3 weeks, right? Next week, I'm going to introduce some database examples. We need to add that in there. You know, we need to create the login form. You know, we need to create the content. You know, a lot of things need to go in. All right, so make sure that you don't fall behind. Download all the files, and then we'll continue next week with this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and stop sharing. I'm going to stop.